I'm Shane Hoefer, and this is where I sit down with some of the most interesting individuals that come into my life. All right. I am Shane Hoefer, the CEO of Rocky Mountain Forest Products, and today I am with one of our sales managers, Chris. Chris is one of the most interesting individuals I've ever met, for better or for worse. And Chris is actually a very private individual, which I respect tremendously. And so it took a long time to convince, not necessarily took a long time to convince you on here, but like we just had to
open up,
build some trust.
Yeah.
So thanks for sitting down, man. I appreciate you coming on here.
For sure.
So what's life like for you at Rocky Mountain?
Life for me here, I guess.
How long have you been here now?
5 years, going on 6. So, been here since 2016. Was here for Darren West hired me. Guest. Yeah, so he was on here, but Darren hired me. And then
I was on vacation.
You were on vacation. You were in Fiji.
He texted me and said
that like I hired this Puerto Rican guy, and like it was that. I was like, that's all they remembered. Okay. But it was Darren hired me. That was back when Darren had his ponytail, so he was a lot like kind of more chill. So yeah.
Why did he never do the man bun?
I don't know. Like, I feel like he's not like a man bun kind of guy. Like, once he kind of gets like a certain like masculinity.
He's got a little too much oomph for a man bun.
It was kind of like the Raiden from Mortal Kombat. Like, just let it flow back in the day. So.
Well, we're going old school there.
Mortal Kombat, yeah, Raiden. It was like white hair, one dude. Yeah.
I go back all the way to Street Fighter.
Damn.
That's how old I am.
Like we're talking Ken and Ryu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, Street Fighter. Come on. Hadouken. So, and the Hurricane Kick. But Darren hired me. Fast forward, I was at the front counter for probably, which was the receptionist. I was there for approximately probably a month or two.
You'd call it receptionist, we call it the quarterback.
The quarterback, yes. Back then, that was a job title though, was the receptionist. And I remember
we call it the quarterback because that position touches every single lead, just like the quarterback touches the ball on every single play.
Correct.
So every lead that comes in has got to be handled the right way. So it's actually a very, very important position. It's entry level, but we put a tremendous amount of importance on that.
Oh, yeah. If you up, it's highlighted immediately, like everybody knows. But I was there. The guy across from me in the sales office actually ended up quitting come like July, and I believe I started in like June-ish, like first week of June that year. And I kind of just put myself into that office on my own. Like I just walked over and like started moving my shit because I just saw what he was doing, and he was like one of the top guys on the team at that point, and I thought that was pretty easy. So I
want to put this into perspective for a minute because I haven't thought about this era in a long time. So So my dad was still there, playing a major role, but the Tabor division, he didn't screw with a whole heck of a lot at that point in time. So it was very much me and Darren's little world in there.
Yeah. Back to always getting the newspapers every morning. Like, I still remember those days, even if rain or snow, like that newspaper better get picked up. But moved into the sales position. I remember you immediately calling me on that extension, and you were like, come see me.
Was this when I just got back from Fiji or something?
No, you had already been back, and I had been in. We had already done calls and meetings. You pretty much, I don't know if you remember this, but you pretty much were like, I saw you moved yourself into the sales position, and I was like, yeah. Like I kind of just did it, and you're like, do you believe you're ready for that? And I was like, yeah. I feel like I could do much better than the last guy. Like, and saw what he did, and you're like, okay. So I thought I was in a lot of trouble, and then it was kind of just like, all right, good luck. And
that's funny. I don't remember any of this.
Oh, I remember that. You remember when you get called into that office. But I remember time after that. Probably come December, Darren was gonna leave.
Let's go back. Let's go back before we get there.
Okay.
You weren't from a sales background at all. You were previously thinking about law enforcement prior to coming to Rocky Mountain.
I was thinking about law enforcement because I had a prior military service, so naturally that's kind of like your first inclination. But
So what made you end up at a lumberyard to begin with?
So, not knowing how you guys actually operated, I remember seeing like the job listing, like it said receptionist / sales position at a lumberyard, and I had more or less heard through like something on like 9 News, Colorado or something like that, that Governor of Colorado had put into order like 30,000 new homes had to be built because of all the people that were moving here.
You were finishing up college at the time.
I was finishing up college, and this was also, which definitely impacted, was Amazon was still being bid on by Colorado, I believe, at that time.
I kind of remember that.
So, you know, it was supposed to be like estimated new 50,000 new people as well, and new homes in those vicinities. So I kind of thought, okay, you need lumber to build a home, and doing like that's how I approached it. Even though we don't do any studs or anything, which is to frame out a home. So
what was that like? You like. There's so many other people here that like it makes sense for them to be here. Their dad's a carpenter. Their grandpa was a carpenter. Their dad also did building material supply or something like that. There's nothing in your background that makes you think you should be at a lumberyard. What was it like coming into this kind of a blue-collar world with our special little Rocky Mountain spin?
I would say coming into the world, I quickly picked up that it was a world where the harder you hustle, like on your own individual thing, you can achieve like your own individual success rapidly. Like here, you know, like there's no ceiling on you in terms of like how you can perform. And I grew up around essential like blue collar type stuff too, like, you know, just like hardworking. And I didn't think there was anything really to adapt to. It was more just to learn like the products and how to present it. I actually think if you don't have any sales experience, but you know how to hustle, right? Like you'll be fine. And I believe Jay-Z said it one time that if you were to take all these drug dealers like in New York City and stuff, right? That if just because of their circumstance where they were born into, if you were to take these guys and give them every advantage in life that some other people had, they'd be running Fortune 500 companies, right? And so in my mind, I didn't think it would be hard at all. I kind of looked at it as...
Because you felt like you had hustle.
I knew I could hustle, and a lot of people are like scared of contractors. I kind of caught because it's a very almost very like brash and kind of dominating personalities, and they will try to clash with you. And that doesn't faze me. Whereas that does faze a lot of people, and we've seen that in the company. You know, some people are afraid to tell somebody bad news, etc.
Like the bottom line is like this is a very, for better or worse, and whether it's politically correct or not, it's a industry that's still very, very male dominated.
Very masculine.
Very masculine, and it is a testosterone-driven industry where it's got that vibe sometimes. And anyone that's spent any time in this industry knows that.
And again, you're dealing with people with timelines, and you're kind of just usually the middleman, which isn't even that hard. So yeah, like just blue collar and kind of like some. You could be blunt with these guys too, which I actually kind of appreciate and like, because I'm a blunt type person too. Like, look, dude, sorry, that shit's not gonna work. And they're like, oh, like, yeah, it's lumber, it's the lumber industry. So if anything, I would say that I was unaware of how comfortable I could actually be in the lumber industry, just because you don't know what you don't know.
You think you're going into like this environment, you got to put on this certain professionalism.
And like first week I came in like khaki pants and like a button up, and I remember seeing everyone in jeans and like shoes, and I was like, damn, I'm overdressed. Like this is kind of up my alley. So yeah, that's how I looked at it.
So this is interesting because our last podcast was with Darren. So hopefully the people that are watching this stuff have seen that and got to know Darren a little bit. What was it like coming in and working for Darren? How was that? What stands out to you now in hindsight?
For Darren, I never felt like I worked for Darren. I think that's a key thing there. I think Darren, the thing I think that got me to vibe more with Darren, he called me into his office one day and made me watch, I don't know if you It's gonna be funny, but Roy Jones Jr. He's a boxer, and it's one of Darren's favorite boxers. And Roy Jones Jr. also became a rapper, and he has this song called "Can't Be Touched." And I remember Darren calling me in probably like after like my first month, which I could kind of tell he was feeling me out, and I was feeling myself out there too as well. Like, do I even want to be here, etc. And he called me into his office to watch like a 10-minute video of just Roy Jones knockouts of dudes, and I was like, I kind of fucks with this guy. Like he knew sports, he was cool. He could hoop back in the day, which we had kind of a common ground, and he was very much like a mentor. Like he was never a dick. That like I think Darren, like I remember. I guess you could say he led by example. Like I remember back in the day when we had another Darren in the warehouse area, and the policies back then were very like black and white. There's no gray area. And in order for us to take back returns or something like that, and essentially break the rules, somebody around about way tried to call me a liar, like from the operations, and Darren like stuck up for me, and I remember he came out and took off his shirt. He had on a wife beater under, and he was like, "We'll do this shit ourselves." And we pretty much like restacked material because the operations team was like, "We're not doing that because you guys took a return." So he came out and we restacked like 2 bunks of material, which to me, and he very much had like, okay, they have a problem. Like, I'm gonna do this shit myself. Like, and he's like, "Chris, will you help me?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So that kind of, I knew he cared about me, right? That's good leadership right there. So I was good. Like he taught me everything. Like I can say that a lot of my success at Rocky Mountain has been because the system I got brought up in. Like if you relate it to football, it'd be like if somebody was like, "Oh, he's part of the Patriots Bill Belichick system." That's
exactly
what,
the analogy that came to my mind.
That's how I look at that. It's very much I was lucky in that regard because from day one I was held to extremely high expectation that I thought everyone else across the board was too. But it was like I was already performing better and I was expected to perform even above that. So I liked it. I liked his style of leadership. Even if you fast forward to when he told me he was leaving, right? Like when that everything came out that he was gonna go do his other thing, I remember very distinctly being like, "Oh, I guess I'm out of here then," because like I didn't like anybody else pretty much that I was working with. I didn't know you personally, and everybody else on the team.
Because that was about, you'd been here for
almost 6 months about that time.
That's what I was gonna say. It was about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like you and I, we had a few interactions, but we didn't know each other.
I had seen you like scream at people for like messing up stuff, and like so you were very like you're tall.
wait. That being said, how often do I scream at people?
You've screamed at people twice in this entire time, but it's very.
But did it both times happen in that 6 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
One of them was something along the lines of Spanish radio. And then
that wasn't screaming.
That wasn't screaming, but like your jaw clenched. So
I have massive
internally.
jaw muscles here. Everyone knows that if I get stressed, the little
yeah. So
that happens.
And you like So but
I may have.
You definitely did that. But that was my only interactions here, right? Because the old marketing folks that were there, everybody that was there, I didn't really.
You weren't that close with
I wasn't close with
them.
And I was here because, Darren actually mentored me. I remember getting actually to a law enforcement agency a job offer while I was here. And I very much thought, I was like, well, let me bring this up to Darren, which that already shows I trust him. A lot of people wouldn't tell, hey, I have another job offer.
Of course, yeah.
So I remember going to him and asking how much truly could I make here? And anybody who knows Darren knows he's a numbers guy. Like once he pulls out the notepad, he's gonna break it down. And he showed me what I could do in just the 6 months that I'd already achieved. Well, and by that time it was 3 months by what I could achieve. And it was a no-brainer. I was like, oh, okay, this is got time off, not dealing
That
with
actually
shit.
says a lot because, I mean, sales organizations have a pretty bad reputation of blowing smoke in that area. And the fact that you went to Darren and believed what he told you, that says a lot about the trust that he had built with you.
Yeah, I didn't think he would bullshit. And again, I'd seen him go to bat for me multiple times, and that's what a good leader does. So, yeah, but I distinctly remember Darren saying he was leaving, and in my mind, I was like, I'm out. Like, there was no reason for me to be here because I was like, if any of these other individuals get put in charge of me, like, there's no way. Like, I remember, like, very much thinking that, like, that's just not what I'm gonna roll with.
Well, that's really interesting. So let me tell my perspective of that story, just because the audience is probably like, Darren left? What? We just saw him on the last podcast.
Yes, he came back.
Yeah, so Darren and I we vibed and worked together for years at that point, and we were tight. Like, we just understood how each other thought.
Yeah.
And he comes to me, and it rocked me. It was I think it was the week after our Christmas party.
Yeah, it was right after that.
And I was just like, and he had an opportunity to go work with some people that he went to college with on something that he thought was going to be a better opportunity. And, like, you can't fault that, right? Like, we all come to work, and I've always said that. Like, we come to work to take care of our families. And so I look at that as one of my roles as an owner is, like, it's my job to provide the most opportunity for everyone here so that that's why I never try to put ceilings on anything, like, however high someone wants to go. And so when he's like, dude, I think I have a better opportunity, I can't fault that. Like, if you got a better opportunity, then you got to go.
Yeah.
And so that left me with an interesting situation because here I had this division, the sales division that I had poured more heart and soul into than any others because my dad was still around, had his finger
walking through there multiple times a day,
and still was very involved in other sales divisions. And he was less involved in Tabor Street, your division where you and Darren were at, than any. And then I had to figure out who's going to run this thing. And I had some guys that had way more experience in Rocky Mountain terms than you. And I threw that out to everyone. I was just like, who is interested in potentially throwing their hat into the ring? We have two options. One of you guys can throw your hat into the ring, or we can bring in an outside influence. I remember that meeting as clear as freaking day. Right now, I remember that afternoon sitting at the conference table. It was dark outside. What were your thoughts on that was when we announced that Darren was leaving? That's when I said that I was looking for someone from inside. Did you think about throwing your hat in the ring at that point?
I was like, it was very much, like you just said, everyone else had more experience than me. So in my mind, I did not see me as like even an option to you guys. Like I didn't know you guys. So it was when Darren actually, I was in his office and I was just saying like, dude, like it was a pleasure, like, and he kind of like quietly was like, throw your hat in the bag, and I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, throw your hat in the bag, and in my mind, like that never even crossed my mind, and I was like, all right, like, I'll do it. And I remember interviewing with you. You asked me like, what did I think leadership should be? I remember I had all these leadership things, and I was trying to read the situation too, because I was like, I don't know like what has been said. I don't know how my performance overall looked like. It's just an unknown. So like, I believe it was you told us on like a Thursday or something. You interviewed on a Friday. You wanted to take the weekend to think about it. So, and Darren was going to be there for another week, which I could already tell the decision would be made quickly because Darren would have to teach somebody that week. Like, I thought that would be the thing. And I did not think it would be me. Like, even when I got called in first, I thought that I was going to be told, like, so I remember going in, and you were like, I want to offer you the position. And I was like, what? Like, it still to this day blows my mind because I was here for 6 months, and we had people here for 5 years, 20 years, and you just had a lot of experience in the company. So it definitely caught me off guard, and it almost, like, to me, I like challenges. Like, if it's not challenging, it's not really fun to me. Like, I want it to be difficult. So I kind of looked at it as a challenge, and I was just like, oh, okay. I had no idea what it even entailed, because at this point all I knew how to sell was fencing, right? That's one portion of the company. So that's all I knew, and I had to. I remember even saying saying all of my weaknesses, kind of like, hey, you're well aware of these, right? Like I don't know this shit, and you were like, you'll be fine. Like you have leadership, and I remember kind of thinking, I was like, and like that doesn't mean I can run this thing immediately. But then I realized how many people in the world actually don't have leadership, like in like just any sector. Like there's not a lot of leaders in it. I realized that I could thrive in that. Like a lot of things that people get curveballs at in this industry, you just have to be able to roll with them.
You and I have talked about that. So often people that are leaders, they're not leaders, they're managers.
Yeah, I would definitely.
And the business world is flooded with them. And that when I asked people to throw their hat in the ring, and many, many people from the division did that day, you were already really, really high on my list that day. I was. If I had to have given the leadership position to someone that day with no interview, I would have given it to you.
That's terrifying.
Purely based on what I had observed. And, you know, in hindsight, I can potentially look like a genius because you've thrived and done so well. But I think it was really just a matter of looking at people and character traits. You know, like when years ago I learned, like when we were interviewing for salespeople, like a successful salesperson has certain character traits. They're naturally competitive, they're motivated by money, they learn hard work ethic, so somewhere in their youth. So I look for those three things. If you have those three things, you have about an 80% chance of succeeding at Rocky Mountain Forest Products. And so, like, I've always been that guy. You know, we've had our philosophical conversations. Yeah. We're always looking at the philosophical, existential level of things. And I'm like, who's actually capable of running this team? And there were people that, while they had more experience, I'm like, you're not capable of running a team and the ups and downs. And you've touched on that a little bit with Darren and the nuances of, like, I didn't work for Darren, I worked with Darren. And that says a lot right there. Like, that's what successful leadership is. Like, there's that fine line, like, you lead your people, but you're not dictating to your people.
Correct.
And anyway, it's interesting to hear all this stuff after the fact, because at the time I was just like, I'm 99% certain that Chris is the guy, but I got to give everyone a fair shot and see if someone blows me away, and see if Chris sticks his foot in his mouth where we're in my office one-on-one, and I'm like, yeah, he's not the guy. But in hindsight, it all worked out really, really well. So what did that mean for you at that point? Because at that point, you were still uncertain whether you're like, I don't know if I want to stay in this or go back to law enforcement, because that's what my education's for. Where were you?
At this point, like after I'd been offered the position, I had no idea where it could go.
How'd your family respond to that?
My family, very supportive. My wife told me that she wasn't surprised whatsoever, and I was like, "Thank you, you're awesome." But that was realistically my motivation, because I don't know. I think a lot of people in life focus on shit that doesn't matter, right? Like, to me, I just want to be around my family and live my life to the best of my ability and take care of them and enjoy countless happy moments, right?
Absolutely.
That's it. So to me, I kind of looked at it as I could either be in law enforcement, right? Or be here where it's extremely flexible. I can take time off, and I actually enjoy being here, right? Like, I enjoyed, not as much as I do now, but at that point, like, I enjoyed it, right? And then it was kind of like another challenge. Like, that's all it was like a challenge. And then once I kind of got, like, within the first 1 to 3 months, once I heard that other people kind of doubted that I could do it, that's all I needed. Like, that was all I needed. Because then once I heard that, I was like, all right, okay. Like, I'll do this shit just for fun. Like, I'll do it just to prove a point. And
it makes me think, what was that Michael Jordan documentary that
I took that personally?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's my motivation, though, because to me, there's no... this isn't hard. I don't understand how people can't really become successful, I guess, here, like if you have all those little character traits, because in my mind, it's it's very simple, like on how to essentially be in this lumber industry. It's very much like you just have to network with people and build trust and rapport with contractors, etc. Like, okay, that's a blueprint. And all I needed was the challenge of proving people wrong. That's way more rewarding to me than any paycheck. Like, just to do it, like just to be like, oh, you, I'm that much better. Like, that's how I look at shit. So it was that's all I needed. Like, that's truly, for the first year, that's all I needed was other people. Like, I had it written on my board, little things that people said, like on my whiteboard that I could see every single day. And yeah.
I'll tell you when I knew, and it was sometime in that first year, and it was one of the people that you inherited from Darren's team had quit. And you came into my office that afternoon, and you had said, "Is this my fault? Is this on me? Did I cause this?"
Yeah, I remember that very specifically.
Yeah, and that's where I was just like, this dude's gonna make it. Because it would have been so easy for you to be like, this ain't my fault. It's on that guy. And that's what so many people that I've seen over the years would have done. And just the willingness, especially considering you and I were still just building rapport at that time. I think we spent a lot of time together in those first few months.
Yeah.
And I think we got to know each other very, very well. But for you to come in and be that raw, and you were willing for me to be like, yes, Chris, you didn't, like, we had trust, but not enough that you didn't know if I was going to come unglued on you or some shit like that, right?
Ass chewings happen. It's not that bad.
But it was just the fact that you were willing to look in the mirror and be like, man, did I screw something up? I was like, this guy's going to succeed. Because if you look at everything that happens with that much self-honesty, then I think anyone will succeed. Because like you said, it's not that hard. But I want to pick on that a little bit. You had said it's not that hard if you have these basic character traits.
Yeah, like the...
What are those character traits?
Well, one, I was going off the character traits that you want to hire for. But I would say, in my opinion, I like adversity. I believe adversity breeds, I feel like adversity will breed more leaders than anything else because you have no other choice to do it. So I like people that have had some form of adversity, or if you have a chip on your shoulder. I, as a leader, can play to much more effectively than other character traits, which people that have been through adversity or people that have a chip on their shoulder, like Curtis, right?
Meaning you relate to those people.
I can relate to those people, but those people have an internal motivation that
you could never manufacture for them.
Correct. If I say, oh, you can't do this, one, that's a dick move, but that's not gonna do anything to them. But if somebody like in their family has doubted them, right, and said, oh, you can't do this, I like that because when you and I actually achieve success, right, I'm going to remember that. Like, remember when somebody said this shit and Curtis remembered. And now if you look at how even he's gone, like freaking phenomenal. So those are like character traits that I look for that I think you mesh well with Tabor's team, in my opinion. But in terms of you just have to be able to roll with punches, I think. You have shit goes south, happens. Some people don't like to deliver bad news, which I've seen that's not hard. Like, hey man, this is where we're at. You'd be surprised how many people can't do that shit.
You know what? It's been one of my weaknesses over the years that I have a tendency, I think I'm getting better at it, of wanting to cushion bad news to a fault. To the point that then, like, afterwards, I'm like, oh shit, I think I cushioned that so much he didn't understand how bad this news really
dire
was.
this is.
Yeah.
No, it's being able to talk to contractors and not only talk to contractors, but vibe with the contractors, which these guys come from a very blue collar background. So if you're like some like preppy kid with no scars on your knuckles and no callus on your, like, these guys might not like vibe with you as well. So I still, like, I haven't narrowed it down to what makes this easy in my mind, but it just blows my mind that people can't do the simple tasks. Like, we've given the blueprint multiple times.
What have you seen people struggle with more at Rocky Mountain? You've been here for more than half a decade now.
Damn, I didn't even think of that.
Is it harder to learn to interact with our contractor base or harder to run people?
Like, for me?
For you and for people in general?
It is much harder to run people than contractors because actually, like, I have to see these people constantly because, you know, we're on the same team. Whereas contractors, I think...
That was one of the things my dad told me years ago, was just like, once you get into a place of leadership, your employees are your customer base. You know, like...
Yeah, no, you have to weaponize them.
Well, but it's also like you have to motivate them. You have to get the most out of them. Mm-hmm. You have a finite number of them. You can't just keep burning bridges and going and replacing them.
You can't cut them immediately.
I mean, we have a lot more contractors to pull from than we do employees, but there's a finite number of contractors in Colorado. We don't want to start burning contractor relationships. So I can relate to that. Like that's why I spend so much time getting to know you. Like as we were getting ready to work together, like we're gonna have to figure out how to, like, I built trust with Darren over years and years and years, and it was kind of like, okay, you've been here 6 months, we gotta learn to trust each other real fast.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I think one of the reasons I was able to be successful, and I know for a fact this helped tremendously, was the system I came up in. Like I said earlier, I was the same way. I didn't know you and I didn't trust you yet. So I was like, all right, I need to see what the f this dude's about. Like, it's that simple.
But I had a base read on you. Did you have a base read on me?
You were chill. Like, before I got into the position, like, you were chill. I kind of get that. You were tall, walked around. You had good style, wore, like, Gucci shoes. So I was like, interesting individual. Like, you don't think, like, a 6'5", like, Norwegian descent dude is gonna rock the Gucci's, but
in a lumberyard.
Yeah, in a lumberyard. So I was like, okay, this is unique. So I remember that, but I remember talking to you and having conversations where I think it humanized you. I think when Darren told you that he was leaving, and when you came in to explain this to the team, you had tears in your eyes, and I kind of was like, holy shit, like this dude actually gives a fuck about him. Like, damn, these guys are cool. Like, I didn't know that. So to me, I could tell that you guys actually were close, right? So then that kind of humanized. I didn't think that you looked at Darren as just like someone you were going to replace, right? Like, you were losing like your friend, you were losing somebody that you rolled with for years. So I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, maybe this dude's chill. Like, that was it.
For the record, obviously, Darren came back 6 months later.
Yes.
That kind of got skated over in this whole process.
Yes, he did come back. But so I remember talking to you, getting to know you, and finding out, like, yo, there's a lot more to you than meets the eye. Like, you've gone on some, like, you've done, like, you think outside the fucking box, and in a good way. And I remember kind of, like, you kind of opened my eyes to, like, just a different way of thinking, especially about business, because I had almost no experience in doing it. So I think probably the most terrifying in that first year.
I know what you're going to say.
The granite, where you were just like, yeah, just purchase the granite. And for people that don't know, back then, I mean, the cost has gone up. But back then, these were like $30,000, $20,000 purchases. This ain't my money. So I have a very hard time of just like dealing with that. And I remember you like, just order it, man. Like, you'll figure it out. And I remember like pausing, like, what? Like, I'll figure it out. And you kind of like, but in retrospect, you guided me through it. You'd step in if there was going to be a mistake. But fast forward that time when we had that whole like debacle with the containers and all that stuff with operation. Couple years later, I remember the way you looked at that huge problem. Like, we had, for people that don't know, long story short, we had 28 containers stuck at the port of Houston, and it was
racking up hundreds of dollars of fees every day.
Racking up $3,700 in fees daily for that amount, and we were trying to get them out. And I remember you saying, like, don't worry, this isn't your problem. I don't expect you to unload them. You know, like, you can only do so much. And I remember like explaining to you, like, this is a problem. Like, I am freaking out. And you were like, dude, it's not that big. And like immediately I was like, what the do you mean it's not that big? Like this is $73,000 worth of shit. And you're like, in the grand scheme, like, you know, like we'll adapt. And that terrified me. That the way you looked at that was like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I was, again, terrified the entire time. I remember we had to have a meeting to address that because you said you wanted.
I remember that meeting clear as day, too.
I remember that. Yes, you called me into your office prior. I remember you going to Fiji saying, like, I believe there was like 18 containers left, and you said something along the lines of, I want there to be a minimum of like 2 remaining. And vice versa, it was actually only 3 got done. And
yeah, so it came back to like 15 remaining instead of 2.
Yeah, so you were like, that was like my introduction to everything.
But so let me provide some perspective on that, which you'll get now. So when I just said purchase the granite, you'll figure it out. First off, like picking the right granite colors for our inventory, it's on a spectrum, right? Some colors are super hot, some colors are super just dead, they don't move, and it's on a spectrum. Mm-hmm. I also knew that as guy in charge of sales of all of the granite for that division, that you're going to be more motivated to sell the colors you picked than if I was just like, hey, sell these colors. Because if I pick some dog colors, you'd be like, I can't sell these. She picked dog colors.
Yeah.
But if you picked them, you're going to be like, oh, crap, I got to figure out how to get rid of these dog colors.
Really? That's how you looked at it?
Of course.
Smart.
Like, you got no one to blame other than yourself. And I also, because you had earned enough trust with me that I knew that you would care out of just self-respect reasons of like, dude, I picked these. I got to make sure they move. So that's why I give people authority. People are always way more responsible for their own ideas than for somebody else's.
I would agree.
So that was number one. Number two, I saw, it was one of those things that I learned from my dad. When shit hit the fan, my dad would try to get everyone to understand how big it was. Such as, $70-some thousand in fees.
76. Yeah, I remember.
People understand that. They don't need it to be made worse than it is. So I would see people would panic and be like, what does this mean? Like, what happens if we pay these fees? Is this going to affect me some way? Like, are they going to have to like cut expenses or something like that? And I saw that Dad's desire to make that sound, put it into perspective of how dire it was, what a big problem it was, backfired sometimes to where people start panicking so much, then they almost panic to a place of inaction or worry. So it's just like, look, it's not that I want to downplay it that it's not a big deal. You already know $70-some thousand is a big deal. It's $70,000. But if I panic, that doesn't do anything to bolster your confidence.
No, it does not.
So that's why I handled those two situations the way that I did.
That's funny because I remember as we grew and built the sales team, etc., I used to have the sales team actually pick out the granite. Like I'd let them do it all. Yeah. So
for the same reason you were doing the same thing.
So that's why I was like, oh, interesting. That's what I did. But that was how I kind of just learned trust and learned how to operate in this little area. And again, learning experiences, I'm very self-reflective. So I overanalyzed that thing so much that I was like, this will never happen again. Like I have so many control measures on stuff leaving Brazil and India now that like shit doesn't leave unless I approve it twice. So like just so that never happens again.
So think of it. Who knows how many years worth of fees we saved by that one situation being the way it was. So
you learn, and we that was kind of like the start of everything kind of clicking, and we just took off from there. Like that's all it was. Like we lost some people along the way, but we hired more people. We've trained everybody up in the same sort of system, kind of like that Bill Belichick system, like, hey, do your job. And it works, and we're a very disciplined team as well. I think that's kind of what I would say has attributed the most to our success is just our discipline. Like we're going to get it done.
So that's it. You brought that up. You literally, I swear to God, you just read my mind. So I'm like, we got to go and start talking about the parallels between sports and leading in sales. And you and I have always vibed on certain sports analogies. We vibe on football. You're also a way bigger basketball NBA fan, and I'm not so much. But what role did people like Kobe and Jordan and Belichick and Brady play in the way that you lead? Because this dude's from and is naturally a Patriots fan.
Right. So I would say,
So speaking of that, wait, I gotta go off. If you're a Patriots fan, how'd you become such a Kobe fan?
Of Kobe Bryant?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Kobe Bryant. Like, I don't know how else to explain
Well,
that.
yeah, but Tom Brady's Tom Brady, but I'm from Denver, so I'm never gonna root for Tom Brady.
Kobe Bryant is a savage, and rest in peace. But I don't know. I like Kobe Bryant's outlook on a lot of things, and not even in a sense of leadership, but in a sense of trying to be the best expression of yourself. I kind of definitely took that from Kobe Bryant. It kind of helped me develop that every single day I was trying to get better. And I've already been like that, but it was kind of like now I had a YouTube video that I can listen to that reiterated that. Which, side note, it does. One of the things that always kind of bugs me about people not trying to be successful or not having discipline or not having motivation or figuring shit out, everybody, 99.9% of people in this country have a cell phone, and you have a supercomputer in your hand that has access to an unfathomable amount of information that you can use to your benefit or your disadvantage. And that's what I did. I'm like, you're talking every day. For years, I was listening to like a Kobe Bryant or some sort of mindset video to, I guess you could say, in a sense, harden my mentality that I could use to execute here. It was because you have, like, if you think about when people say doubted me, right? You can relate to Kobe Bryant that he actually enjoyed going to opposing teams when they would cheer like Kobe sucks, he said, like, he actually loved it and he thrived on it because he didn't people didn't realize that when you boo him and you kind of like say all these things towards him, that actually relaxes him and like makes that's his comfort zone. So when people boo, it's like something that's helping him.
I think most extremely successful, Grant Cardone talks about this, most extremely successful people find fuel in the naysayers.
Oh yeah.
Like, you don't, if you're so weak that you're going to get upset that someone's booing you, you probably are never going to have true success anyway. But, if you're that guy, if you're naturally going to be that guy that's going to be extremely successful, you're going to hear that and you're like, these people see me as a threat. And they think they need to get in my head. I'm going to take these people down.
And there was, again, I never looked at the naysayers or the doubters as, them seeing me crush whatever they said is going to be a byproduct of me being successful, right? So I'm not using them as I'm going to do it to prove them. No, I'm just going to do this, but I'm subtly going to be like,
It's a side benefit you're going
to
get?
It's a side benefit, you see this, no shit. And, that's all I need. That's extremely rewarding for me, just to prove people wrong. And subtly, not in a dick way. But listening to Kobe Bryant, the way that he, every single day, it's about allotment of time, right? So when I come in, just like Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant would start working at 4 a.m., from 4 to 6, take a break from 8 to 10, go back from 10 to 12, take a break from 12 to 2, and then from 2 to 4, go back and practice again. And if you look at how much Kobe Bryant was so successful he put in so much work that by the time your competition kind of clicked, oh shit, that's what he's doing, there's no way you're going to catch him because he's 5 years ahead of you already in terms of time put in. And I started setting aside okay, I just need to figure out how we can grow us. What do I need to focus on to make this division the best it can be? And once I figured out certain things, that was my main focus.
What were those things for you? Running a sales division?
Contractors. It's very, our biggest competition, regardless, is always right down the street, right? Just off of location, search, 44th, Denver. They're, by Google algorithms, they're going to pop up. They've been known for 44 years at that point. So they have
Meaning our main store.
The main store, right? The main hub, which was everybody knew to go there. And if you looked at like their business, they were like 70% of their business was contractor and 30% was retail. At that point, I remember looking at it. And
let me just interject for people that don't understand. So we have 2 yards that are 6 blocks apart in the same city.
Yes.
And it was a matter of when we outgrew that main yard that we had as our core, we couldn't buy any neighboring land to expand. So we had to buy another piece of property that was 6 blocks away. We buy that to be our distribution yard. Well, then the 2008 recession happens, and all of a sudden this distribution yard needs to become income producing, hence birthed what is today our Tabor sales division. So here he inherits this division that has to be income producing so that it can pay basically the mortgage on this land without cannibalizing the home store, which is 6 blocks away. It is like, in some ways, from an outsider's perspective, it's the dumbest setup you could ever have. It's like having 2 locations 6 blocks apart.
And they're also 3 times our size at that point. So it was, once I realized, okay, their strength was they have 40 plus years of contractors retention and knowing their location. Whereas for us, we were 30% contractor and 70% retail.
And they're on a major thoroughfare, and you're tucked away in this back little industrial neighborhood.
We're off a side street with a train going by us. So I realized our disadvantages, and I made a conscious effort we still are going today, to grow our contractor base, like on our own. And we're very independent as well. Like if you're at Tabor, you automatically have a chip on your shoulder, right? Like that's just what's going to happen. You're going to have your way of like, if you're at Tabor, you deal with other people in the company's shortcomings daily, right? So you have to have a team of like, you have to be able to motivate a team to, hey, we have to do all these other things where other people are shortcoming. That's okay. Right? Like we're going to take these shortcomings and turn them into positivity on our end. So a lot of times if you're at Tabor, it's where all the special order stuff goes to. When something's wrong, it's happening, right? It's happening to us.
Your team's going to have to fix it.
It's our team's that's going to have to fix it. Even though the guys down the street, if it's their deal, we are going to have to fix it. We're the ones that are going to get cussed out. And you can look at that one or two ways. You can either get cussed out or you can tell the guy, yo, I didn't f this up, but I'm going to fix it for you. My name's Chris. You can go from that point, right, of servicing a guy who's in a pinch where other people drop the ball, and you can retain the contractor for the company, but now that contractor comes to you. And now that contractor knows he can work with you, and you're actually going to do what you say, right? So we had to figure out how to do that while the competition is right down the street that has, at that time, the better yard foreman, the better yard, like the Keller lumber, the smoother post and pickets that everybody's married to. Even back then, guys were able to bend the rules easier, pull strings easier. So you had to look at the dynamic of what you had to do, like what we're going to have to figure out.
From your perspective, have we improved all those things?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was just back then. So then we just had to look at how we can grow, right, as a division and still grow the company, right, and still service other people. So it became, we had to develop very strict, and as a leader, you have to catch that. You have to catch like, all right, my team is going to have to deal with other people's teams' shit. How do I keep them from not getting burnt out? How do I develop a system to where we have a culture of we do the right thing, and that's reflected positively. Right? That's very difficult. Like I can go and be the leader and I'm going to do it, but to get everyone else on the team to buy into stopping what they're doing to help somebody else's guy out willingly, where that directly doesn't make you any money except it makes someone else money, that's a very difficult bridge to cross if you don't know how to word it. So what we did was developed SOPs of how we're going to operate, right? We're going to be very strict of what we're going to do. If something goes beyond these parameters, right, we're not going to let it affect us, and I'll step in. We put in multiple control measures to where if the team can't handle it within 3 to 5 minutes, right, like a salesman being able to handle it with 3 to 5 minutes, you come get me. and then I'll get it taken care of, and the team will keep thriving. Once we developed that, we started looking at the other team as not necessarily like a negative like mindset, which was there was a very strong division between the divisions when I first started.
We've had to work on that a lot.
We've had to work, like we've had people that you have to, like, even to the operational standpoint where like, hey, even if both sales divisions are cool, the ops guys don't like each other right now, so good luck with that. You know, like good luck navigating that area. So as a leader, I constantly try to put us in the best position to be successful and for us to execute whatever task is at hand to the best of my ability. And it works. You know, we've had to train guys, right? We focus extremely high on training, right? That a lot of things that happen in the company, it's all about how you look at it. So if guys have a shortcoming and they're like, oh, you know, these guys are lazy, and that's very easy to look at it as. Or you can do some, like, you can call that dude and be like, hey, just letting you know I took care of this, and he might not even know that shit's happening, right? So then now we can take away some of that animosity, and we can actually figure out what's actually happening and highlight if they are a rotten apple or if this is just the nature of the beast. So we've been able to do that. And when 2020 hit, right, where our volume shot up and problems shot up, I believe our entire discipline that we have in our mindset of like, it doesn't matter what anyone else in the company's doing, we're going to do our shit and we're going to be successful. We're not going to let anybody else dictate that, and we're going to take pride in it. We're going to take pride in being a small team but having the strongest punch. Like, that's how we're going to, like, pound for pound, we always are going to look at it that we are the best. That's our mindset. And mindset's everything. Elite is a mindset. And people don't understand that. It is very simple that if you empower these guys, right, in the meantime, because it's very difficult, you have to be able to empower them to be able to make decisions that any other place they might think they might get in a lot of trouble for, right? As a leader, which similar to how you kind of like groomed me into this, was like, yo, you'll figure it out. Like, if you're going to f up, I'll catch you. Don't worry. Like, I'll catch you right before it happens. And I've been able to use that style of leadership and empower the entire team. Like, if you see how my team operates, right? In comparison, like, they'll do all their shit on their own. They don't need me to hold their hand. We are all very independent, which is what you want. To get to the next level, you need a lot of people to buy into the idea, and it has to be their idea, right? Like, since probably 2017, which every month since 2017, because in 2017 my goal was to do 1.3 million in profit, and we came up for the year, and we came up short of $1 million, which was what Darren had did the year before, and we came up 27,000.
Which was your first year leading.
Which is my first year leading, and I remember you kind of tried to spin it like, dude, it's your first year, you know, like, it's not a big deal.
The fact that you didn't lose ground from someone that had done it for 10 years, I still think was a huge win.
I still thought that was a failure. So to me, I was like, I didn't achieve what I wanted. So I was like, okay, that will never happen again. And
But do you see then why we are actually a great pair? Because I wasn't ready to crucify you. You crucified yourself.
Yeah, because
we were just
I
a good
have extremely high standards. And I remember every year, every month since 2017, from January on, we had an uptick, a certain growth. And it was always, the lowest we had was 17%. We constantly grew. And you could see that all of our cold calling and relationship building and maintaining relationships and trying to grow relationships and grooming contractors and learning our faults and trying to critique those, everything was kind of starting to form, which was cool to see because it was like, it let us know like, oh, okay, it's working. And again, to Tabor, how we've been since day one, we focused heavily on training. That I think separates a lot of people, because if you look at the two guys that started on, we'll call them J and O, that started at Tabor right before 2020 hit, right? They started in December 2019. Both these guys came in off the street, and we trained 3 times a week, including an extra morning, so technically 4 times a week, listening to calls and to improve.
Can I ask you why you don't want to say their names?
I don't know. I didn't know if they wanted me to say. I didn't know if they signed the document or not. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
It's fair. Like I was like,
sure.
That's where we're at. Chuck.
We'll edit if necessary.
Yeah, I didn't know, so whatever.
Yeah, that's my job. You can say whatever you want. I'll fix it.
Word. But these two guys came in off the street, and we trained constantly. 2020 hits, and you could see it in the company. The volume that came in, certain people weren't able to roll with that, right? You saw people burning out, guys punching desks, like, this is ridiculous. And we didn't even skip a beat. If anything, we were more efficient because it was showing that, oh, this high volume that came at us, we are 100% trained across the board, and we are well prepared to handle it. And our SOPs that we have in place actually benefited us. So when everybody else's shit was all f***ed up because they were off their game and it's a pandemic and every curveball is coming, we were doing fine. Like, to us, we took pride in that. It's like we had two guys come in who are hitting record numbers their first year. And that came from empowering these individuals, like the entire team. Everyone on this team will step up and take initiative on their own. If you don't take initiative, you're going to be highlighted and you're not going to be on this team. We have high standards across the board and accountability across the board. From the guy that's at the front counter quarterbacking, I expect him to hold me as just as accountable as I hold him. And I keep a very open environment where if you want to critique me on something, I'm more than willing to hear it in front of people. Mm-hmm. Because I don't have an ego. I can sit back and be like, all right, this is what you think. Okay, let's run with that. I think your idea will be better because you guys came up with it, which is what I want. They're not going to execute my idea. It's their idea. You can look at how we're focusing on the Spanish portion of it now with the bilingual. Oz has that entire meeting. I remember, like, when we were talking about how to plan it, I was like, no. The leadership that is around does not need to be in this meeting. I'm like, because all of these individuals, it has to be their idea. We can't come in here and none of the three people that we're talking about being in there even spoke Spanish, right? So there is.
So why should they be?
So why the fuck should we be there, right? So we empower Oz, and I'm like, Oz, this is your thing. Like, you don't need to come to me. Like, whatever you plan, bring it to me, bro, and like we'll go from there. And they ran a meeting for an hour and took full control, and it was extremely successful.
And what they came out with, from an outsider's perspective, looks very, very impressive. Yeah. Well thought out.
And that's being a leader. Being a leader is not having to be number one.
100%.
I don't have to be number one. The team will be number one, but I don't have to be number one, because a true leader in this sense, if you're using this team, we're trying to be successful. So instead of being the type of leader who wants to dictate things or this is how we're going to do it, etc., this team, no matter what, is going to take initiative and be successful. And I weaponize them. That's all it is. I use my team as a weapon. How can I get this team to achieve success? Guys, come in. This is what I need to have done. A lot of shortcomings, I think, come from, in any sense, come from a leader not clarifying the end state that he wants, right? My main objective, I'm like, I want us to be to the best of our ability. These three things matter to me: material, getting off-site as quickly as possible so it's not on the books, service, etc. And if I let them know, I expect you to achieve success through these parameters. This is your lateral limits, left and right. Do you? That's very empowering for them, right? Like, and if you see, like, we'll have guys come in, hey, what vendor should I call?
Is that what you felt
you
were given?
Yeah. It's everybody's a reflection of their prior leadership, I think. And I was very spoiled because I came into Darren and Shane's world where it was like, I only knew listening to calls and training and having these disciplines and being held to the highest of standard at all times. Like, I only knew that high standard, so I thought that was the norm, which for us, I'm very laid back as a leader. I'll step in when I need to step in. If I need to turn it on, I can turn it on. But I like to run my team the same way I was kind of taught because I believe it worked. And being a leader isn't just telling people what to do. Being a leader is getting people to develop what they want to do, but it's still along your lines, right? Like, I want them, it's their plan. They're going to be successful.
So let me ask you this. As we continue to grow and guys are being put into leadership positions for the first time like you were years ago, what would you tell those guys? Someone that's new to leadership, going into the first time. What advice do you wish you could give yourself to, if you could talk to yourself back then, or to the...
I would say for all the new guys doing it, I would say read and listen to podcasts about leadership or adversity or sports, because there's a lot of life lessons, right, that come from those. I listen to Jocko Willink, daily, and a lot of those things have leadership, and it's constantly improving yourself, right? You're not like, you can't expect your team to be the best team if you're a shitty individual already, right? And you're the leader. You're not going to be a good team.
Based on some of the shit that's come out of your mouth today, I cannot see what little tile cards we come up for for Instagram off of this one.
Like, boop, like, my bad. But we've been able to, if you want to be a leader, you have, like, a lot of guys think that they're leaders, but they're managers. They manage people. I don't manage shit. Like, do you. You f*** up, we'll fix it. But I want to lead and lead by example, right? Like, if I say, hey, I expect us to do it this way, I don't care if everything in that day is going negative, in a negative direction for me. I am still going to execute it the correct way, and I'm not going to cut the corners. And, I mean, you can even go to courage, right? A good leadership trait is in my opinion, doing the right thing when nobody else is watching. That's a very key thing for me is...
I've heard that being the definition of integrity, doing the right thing when no one else is watching.
Nobody's watching us, right? So it's very easy to cut a corner, and then somebody else will handle it. That's wrong. I don't want that person on the team. I want somebody that's gonna get it done regardless of the situation. And like, we listen to calls, and some people are like, oh, maybe something was happening. But when you hear that from my team's like, there's no excuse. We are supposed to be at the best of our ability constantly. That's what they'll say. I won't even say that. Your team is a reflection of you, so you have to be the best leader you can be for them. They have to know that you're going to go to bat for them regardless. You could say, like, anybody who knows me knows it. You can say whatever the you want about me, like, in terms of a company standpoint. You can say whatever you want about me. I don't even care. I'll just prove you wrong for fun. But you say something wrong, like, about my team, I will say something immediately back, and I will defend them. And I will take it personally because we're a family.
Is that just Chris to a T, or did the military influence that, or where did that come from?
Like, we got each other's back. That'd be me if we were on a basketball or football team. Like,
but where'd you get that from? What instilled that in Chris?
I grew up in the projects, so it was if you realistically, like,
that was your life.
One of us, we're gonna f you up. We don't know you. Like we're like that's my mentality. So if you with one of us, you with all of us.
Which is interesting that you say that, because I saw that as your strength and your weakness as I was teaching you.
Yeah, I bet.
Because like, there were times when, like, you had a team and you had a member on your team that was clearly moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's hard to defend that person.
Your instinct was to defend them because they are part of your team. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the hardest lessons that I had to try to get you to see and to learn.
You gotta let that
was
go.
Like, this is a different scenario here in business, that if you got someone that is dragging your whole team down, I'm all for giving people chances, coaching them up. Yeah. Like, I'm not an off with their head kind of guy, but you know exactly the situations I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, no, very, very, very scary meetings to be in. But that's how I've looked at everything. If you're with us, right? If you're in that division, like, and that's just not even for me, right? Like, we had a situation where a guy from another division said something to Darius, right? And like the whole team, this is 4:40 in the afternoon. We're about to leave. Took it personal and got up and we're like, F that guy, blah blah blah. Who the hell is he? Like defending him out of reflex, and that's what I like to see. I want to see, like, we're not going to beat the shit out of somebody, but
it's such a fine line. Like, I want that divisional pride like that.
Yeah.
But we're still all working for this big. And I feel like we're getting better at that. I think we're, as a company, and tell me whether you agree or disagree, I feel like we're getting better there. Where we still have our individual division identities, divisional pride, but we're working together as a unit better than we ever have as well.
I would say we're
As a
working
company.
better as a unit for the company, better as well, but we still maintain team integrity.
You need both.
We maintain team integrity. It's us against the world, and that's and we needed that mentality when it's a pandemic and there's lines out the door.
It's a powerful motivating factor. Us against the world is a huge, huge motivator.
And you're not going to beat us. Like, we in our minds, we have done everything else to put us in a position to execute and be successful. So I'm never really worried about anything else. Like, we've done everything else, so we're going to be successful. There's no other outcome in that regard. And if something doesn't happen, then we dig into it. But elite is a mindset, and we have the mindset that we're going to be the best of the best. We're not, and that whole team will hold everyone accountable, and they'll celebrate everybody else's successes as much as they will highlight their failure in a constructive criticism. I remember crying when one of the guys on the team went and got a car. You know, like, he was busting his fucking ass. This guy, like, changed his entire life, and he got a car. To some people, they might have gotten a car from their parents in high school, but that man was busting his ass.
It's because of what it meant to his life. Yeah,
and to see what it meant to him, that's more rewarding than any paycheck.
I couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorite aspects of Rocky Mountain, watching guys lift themselves up to levels that they never thought that they could get to.
And seeing guys who, like, come from backgrounds that wouldn't be successful, you know, like, where in America your background could, you know, if you're born into a certain circumstance, the statistics are in your favor to put you in the prison system, right? Like, that's where that's going. And you're able to see these people actually change their lives and see it. And, you know, if you can impact 5 people, those 5 people can impact 5 other people, right? And now we're at 25. And that, everything else is kind of just like a byproduct of it. And we're always preaching, can't emphasize this enough, like, mental health, like, take care of yourself. I don't understand how a lot of people don't care about their teams, and we've had, you know, if guys are being burnt out, I suggest time off, right? Like, hey, take a day off. What? Take a day off, bro. Like, you're off your game, shit's going down, it's fine. Like, come back. You need those mental breaks. Like, we celebrate people going on vacation or trying new things or getting, like, that's because that's what our motivation is. And as a leader, if you're motivated by making the company money, you're not going to be a good leader, right? I'm motivated in seeing these guys be successful and achieve their dreams. In order for them to achieve those, they're going to have to make a lot of money for the company. In turn, they get paid.
And you'll get paid, and Dakota gets paid, and everyone wins.
And it will work. And that's just my style of leadership. And I don't have to be like the superstar on the team. Yeah. Right? Like, I can be Phil Jackson or Bill Belichick in the background, where no, every success of this team is the team. Every failure is on me. That's how that works. And
I couldn't agree more.
And passing on even accounts, because I learned and mastered how to grow account bases and effectively and increase retention. But then I caught, okay, I'm doing this. I'm getting all this money coming to me for the company. I could get these out to my team instead of me looking like I'm crushing it. I can give these to my team and they can crush it and grow those guys faster than I can now, because I'm focusing on growing the entire division. So that now you empower your guys, and your guys see, hey, he's not greedy. He's actually gonna stop everything he's doing to help me become successful. And passing off accounts. I had Draper Construction, one of the largest accounts. I passed that on to Darius. And now he's growing it even better than I was. That, to me, is key in being successful here. Because these guys are, commission-based. So you show them, like, hey, man, if you need help, I'll close that deal for you, dude. Like, just give me the information, and I'll figure it out. Go do the other thing that you're trying to do. That lets them, they trust you. They're going to trust you. They're going to believe that leader will go above and beyond. And if they fear you, they'll fight for you. If they love you, they'll die for you. So you have to have a family. That's what it is. Yep. It's a family. We break bread together. We even, like, I've had these guys come up to me and be like, bro, what do we need to achieve the next success for you? And I'm like, this is the number I'm trying to hit. And they're like, they go get to work just so that could happen. I love working here. It's fun.
I love having you here, man. I think you've done a tremendous job. I'm really thankful that you took the time. We'll wrap it up because we've been going for well over an hour
I'm like,
today.
this goes really quick. I'm like, damn.
Yeah. But we got to end with a controversial question. Brady or Belichick?
Belichick. He's still with us. It don't matter. It's, hey, Tom Brady, you're amazing. Love you. Have a jersey. Even the salute to service one. Looks great. All right, like we it's Bill Belichick now. It is Pats Nation. We to the death. And again, that's leadership 101. That man knows his shit. So
I also just wanted to see what the look on your face would be when I said controversial question.
Bill Belichick, no matter what.
Cool, man. Dude, thanks for taking the time to come on here. I friggin' loved your style. You and I have always vibed on leadership, and for you to spit some of that out for the world to hear is awesome, because I think a lot of people don't see this side of you. So thanks for sharing it, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.